Oh, Irish sign.
Hey, I'm Adam from Murder by Death. I sing and play the guitar.
I'm Sarah and I play the cello.
Blacks out my sight.
Drywall tape. I've written a bunch of songs on drywall tape because I do a lot of home projects, but when I was 16 to 19, I worked construction, and the way my job would work is that I would just have a list of things I was supposed to do in a day, and once I was done with that list, I didn't have to keep working, but I was clocked in on the hourly, and so that was the material that was always sitting around in these houses we were working on. So I would write songs. That's kind of how I started writing songs, and so I would just like whatever I could find to write on would work, and it folds really nice in your pocket and worked pretty well.
I only ever really write when I'm walking, or I kind of just keep it in my head. So
Yeah, she writes a lot. You can remember like a whole thing in your head. I have to write down more.
I typically string it along with a melody, so if I remember the melody, I usually remember the words. So just my brain.
It is a weird surface.
That is a weird surface, yeah.
I never aim to write songs. I never sit down and say, I'm going to write a song now. It's more, the start is just usually when I'm doing something else and then something will come to mind, or someone says something that makes you think of a cool line, or a melody just pops in your head, and I don't really write anything down at all, usually until I know that there's one strong line or a melody that's so compelling and memorable that I remember it, honestly. And I think it goes to, if you write something that's great and then you forget it, was it great? I don't know. And was it really that special? And so I write a lot, and sometimes a song will live in my head for a year and a half before I write anything down or share it with any of the bandmates. And that way it kind of goes through a approval process, so that you're not just showing up with a bunch of people who are ready to start writing a song, and then you realize, oh, this is not a good song. You do your editing as much as you can on your personal level before you bring it to someone else's table.
For me, it's just motion, either walking or driving. Driving is probably my most productive time. If I'm driving a long distance in the car, that's when I really start thinking about melodies.
Yeah, I've written a lot of songs driving too, which is terrible because it's usually when you're driving alone because you're bored, and then it's like, what do I do? And
that's what the voice recorder.
So I started that's the modern thing where you can press a button and record it. But back in the day, I remember having a pen and paper in the cup holder, and you have the paper on the steering wheel, which is just the worst.
You called me when you wrote Shyala.
No, it was Devil in Mexico.
Was it? Because you were driving and you were just like, I need someone to remember this. So you sang me a melody. I remember.
Yeah, it was the intro to our second album.
Oh, that's right. It was.
Song.
That's right. Yeah.
You don't choose when something comes to you, and you don't want to lose something. Sometimes they come really fast. Sometimes the song you could have a whole song done in 10 minutes sometimes, because it just writes itself almost, and you just gotta get it down somehow, because if it comes that fast and it's complete that fast, it might be good. You never know.
I cannot hide from you.
I've got a big three that I realize were influencing my writing a lot. This is at least when I started identifying writers that influenced me. I think it's John Steinbeck, Gabriel Garcia Marquez, and Ernest Hemingway. And those three kind of melded into. John Steinbeck has an element of sort of a dark comedy to his work, and sort of a natural element with a mysterious sort of quality. The magic of Gabriel Garcia Marquez I love. and the sort of like hardness and word selection of Hemingway style. I would say those all are huge influences on me, more than any musician. And
I would agree with. I love all three of those writers. Musically, I think Nico Case is a brilliant writer. I love her dark sense of humor and melodically, I just think she's genius.
there's a song on our new record that Sarah started thinking it sounded sort of like a Nico Case in the slow version, and she brought it to me to workshop it, and I said, yeah, this does remind me of Nico Case, but it reminds me of a Nico Case two-step, so we made it more like jumpy, and it's called Natural Pearl, so that was definitely an influence specifically for a certain song. John Sampson from the Weaker Thans is probably a good journal. He's a very good writer. His lyrics are very strong.
We're touring with Odeth right now, and I would peek into Greg Jamie's journal because he's an interesting guy, and he also is a really great artist, and I think he would have some cool sketches.
Yeah, the sketches is an interesting angle because I was assuming like today I went to the so-and-so.
I don't care what he had for breakfast.
Yeah,
I want to see more of his cool sketches.
That's a cool answer.
I cannot hide.
We have sort of just like these piles of that stuff. I actually have a lot of those sort of artifacts.
Do you have any drywall tape?
I do have some drywall tape ones from high school. From like I've done some like joke songs that I've written that that probably I wrote when I was 16 years old. But, I've got stuff. I've got just like a box somewhere that has these things in there, just because I've tried to save things like posters, show flyers, and little things like that that don't take up a lot of room because it's not that hard. It's like if I find it, I just put it in a box. But I never, I haven't looked at any of them since I wrote them. So.
Try, you give me no reprieve, no chance to fight.